Hey everyone, you ever notice how these days everything's all about the quick fix?
Oh, yeah.
Learn Mandarin in a weekend?
Yay.
Instant abs with this one weird trick.
Right.
It's like we've totally forgotten about, like, the beauty of slow and steady progress.
Totally.
And that actually brings us to our deep dive today, because we're exploring Tai Chi.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it's not just about, like, slow motion movements in the park.
Right.
Although there's definitely an art to that too, right?
Yeah, for sure. When I first encountered Tai Chi, I came to it through my studies in traditional Chinese medicine.
Okay.
And I was really struck by how it bridges this gap between like this ancient wisdom and then also modern science. It's really incredible.
So it's almost like a bridge between centuries in a way.
It is, yeah.
So for those listening who are like, okay, what exactly is Tai Chi?
Yeah,
Is it a workout? Is it meditation? Is it some kind of secret martial art?
right.
Let's break it down.
Yeah. One of the things that makes Tai Chi so unique is how it sort of blends all these different elements together.
Okay.
So imagine, if you will, like a martial art, but with like the mindfulness of yoga and then the philosophical depth of Taoism.
I love that. I came across this one analogy in one of the sources that we were looking at, and it described Tai Chi as like the offspring of Kung Fu and yoga,
Okay.
but it was raised by like a Taoist philosopher.
I love that.
Doesn't that just paint like such a vivid picture?
It does, yeah. And that's actually reflected in the full name of this practice, right?
Oh, okay.
Which is Tai Chi Chuan.
Okay.
So Tai Chi meaning supreme ultimate,
Okay.
and then Chuan meaning fist.
Supreme ultimate fist.
Yes!
Okay, that definitely sounds a lot more like a superpower than I was initially picturing.
Right.
But seriously, what does that even mean?
So it really speaks to this kind of duality that's within the practice. So you have this physical aspect, right? We're talking about this ancient martial art form.
Right.
But it's also about cultivating this like inner peace and strength.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, and a big part of that is understanding this concept of qi.
Okay, chi.
Yes.
I feel like that's one of those words that everyone's kind of heard of,
Yeah.
but not many people actually know what it really means.
Right, right.
And our sources mentioned it quite a bit, so it feels like it's something we should probably dig into.
Yeah. No, it's definitely central to Tai Chi and a lot of Eastern practices. It's often, like, I think people try to make it this mystical force,
Right.
But instead of thinking of it that way, I like to think of Qi as this vital energy that flows through all living things. And so in your body, it's what allows you to move, to breathe, even just to think.
Okay, so instead of like going to the gym and building big muscles,
Right.
Tai Chi is more about like working with, like refining the energy that's already within us.
Precisely,
Right.
yes.
All right.
And that's actually where another key principle comes in, which is yin and yang,
Okay.
which again is another concept that I think people have a surface level understanding of. They think it's like, good versus bad.
Yeah.
But it's not about that. It's about recognizing that both of these forces are actually essential for balance.
Right, because you can't have light without the shadow.
Exactly.
You can't have, like, in Tai Chi, those moments of stillness without the movement as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's about finding that kind of harmony
Finding that harmony.
between two things that seem like they're opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. And that concept of balance, that finding your center, it's also reflected in this idea of rootedness.
Yes, rootedness.
Mm-hmm.
That term really stood out to me, too, when I was looking at this.
Yeah.
Why is that such an important concept?
Well, it's powerful, right? It works on these multiple levels. So, like, physically, it's that feeling of being grounded,
Okay.
connected to the earth. And this is really crucial for, stability in the Tai Chi forms.
So it's not just about, like, looking graceful.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having that really strong foundation.
Exactly. Exactly. But it goes beyond just the physical, right?
Correct.
It also translates into, like, a mental and emotional state.
Okay.
So it's about, like, cultivating that inner stillness.
Right.
That sense of, just being centered, even when, life is kind of chaotic around you.
Right. And the really cool thing is that, these principles, which might seem kind of abstract,
Yeah,
when you
right.
first hear about them, they can actually have really tangible benefits in our lives,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
And the sources that we're looking at today, they don't just talk about, like, the philosophy of Tai Chi.
Right.
They actually delve into, like, the science behind it as well,
Yeah.
which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what really captivated me about Tai Chi. Aside from like the philosophical underpinnings and everything, there's this whole like growing body of scientific research
Right.
that's actually backing up what practitioners, have known for centuries, which I just think is so cool.
So it's not just like, oh, I feel better after I do Tai Chi.
Right.
It's like, no, there's actual, like, measurable results that are happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what kind of benefits are we talking about here?
So many.
Okay.
For example, there was one study that found that Tai Chi can actually significantly improve balance
Okay.
and reduce fear of falling,
Right.
which is huge, especially as, people get older.
Which makes total sense, right? Given, like, the whole rootedness thing.
Exactly.
Like, you're literally building a stronger foundation.
Right.
Both, like, physically, but also mentally.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
But it goes beyond just balance, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What other, like, benefits are there?
There's tons. The research is really quite remarkable. Studies have shown that Tai Chi can be super helpful for stress reduction,
Okay.
improving sleep quality, even boosting immune function.
Wow. So it really is a very holistic practice, right?
Yeah.
It's not just targeting, like, one thing in isolation.
Mhm.
It's like addressing the mind, the body, the energy is this, like, interconnected system.
It is. It's this holistic system.
Which actually, that reminds me of something else that I read in one of these sources,
Okay.
which is how Tai Chi is being incorporated more and more into, like, holistic therapy and coaching these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Right. We're seeing this, I think, a real shift in healthcare in general towards a more holistic approach,
Okay.
recognizing that our physical health, our mental health, our emotional well-being, it's all connected.
Right.
And I think Tai Chi really provides like these practical tools to actually address that interconnectedness.
So for someone listening who is maybe thinking like, okay, this all sounds great in theory,
Yeah.
but like, how do I actually APPLI these Tai Chi principles to my own life?
Right.
What would you say to them?
That's where I think like the coaching aspect comes in.
Okay.
Like think about it. Tai Chi really cultivates these qualities of patience, adaptability, self-awareness.
Right.
And these are like such invaluable skills no matter what you're facing in your life.
Right.
Whether it's dealing with a stressful job or navigating relationships or even just trying to find more peace in your day-to-day life.
It's like that saying, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
So like if you're practicing, mindfulness and balance on the mat, like those qualities are going to start to spill over
Yeah.
into other areas of your life too, hopefully.
Exactly. It's about like cultivating a way of being,
Okay.
a way of moving through the world
Right.
with more like presence and intention.
Right.
And Tai Chi just provides such a great like framework to do that.
So let's say someone is convinced, right? They're like, all right, sign me up. I want to try this Tai Chi thing.
Yeah.
So they go online, they start searching for classes.
Right.
And suddenly they're hit with all these different styles of Tai Chi.
Laughs.
Right. I'll be honest, I got a little overwhelmed when I first started looking into it.
Yeah.
There's Yang style and Chen style and Wu style, and it's a lot.
It is. It is. It's a lot to take in. And it's a bit like, when you discover that there's this whole universe of coffee.
Okay.
Beyond just coffee. You've
Right.
got your different roasts and your brewing methods and your single origin beans. And
Oh, so I'm guessing, just like with coffee, there's not really one right style of Tai Chi.
exactly. Yeah.
It's more about finding, like, the one that speaks to you personally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And each style does really have like its own unique flavor and emphasis.
Okay.
Let's start with Yang style, since it's the most popular and it's probably, what most people picture when they think of Tai Chi. Like you see it in the park and things like that. And it's all about those flowing, almost meditative movements.
Very zen.
Yes.
So if you're looking for practice that's more, like, calming and meditative,
Yeah.
Yang style might be a good place to start.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, on like the other end of the spectrum, you've got Chen style, which is actually the oldest form of Tai Chi.
Okay.
And it's known for having a much more kind of dynamic range of motion. So you'll find these like slow, graceable movements interspersed with these like bursts of power.
Oh, interesting. So there's, like, a hidden intensity to Chen style.
There is.
I
There
like
is.
that.
It's very much like this dance between stillness and then explosive energy.
So we've got Yang style and Chen style, the graceful flow, and then the dynamic energy. What about some of these other styles that we read about? What makes them unique?
Well, if you're looking for something that's maybe a little more adaptable to smaller spaces, you might enjoy Wu style.
Okay.
Because its movements are known for being a little bit smaller, more contained,
Okay.
but they still really emphasize that kind of internal flow of energy.
So even if you don't have a ton of space to move around,
Yep.
you can still get some of the benefits of Tai Chi.
Exactly, exactly. And then there's also Sun style, which is really interesting because it actually kind of weaves in elements from other internal martial arts like Bagua and Xingji.
Oh, wow.
So you're getting this really cool blend of like different traditions and techniques.
It's really amazing to me to think about how, like, this one practice, Tai Chi, has so much variety within it.
It's true.
It's kind of like this whole world just waiting to be explored.
It really is. And I think, ultimately the best way to really figure out what resonates with you is to just try it out.
Right.
Find a teacher, maybe explore different styles and see what speaks to your body and your spirit.
There's that word again,
Yeah.
spirit. One of the sources that we were looking at described Tai Chi as like dancing with life, which I just love that imagery.
Yeah.
It really does kind of capture what we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does, because life, like Tai Chi, it's about finding balance, right?
Yeah.
It's about moving with grace and resilience no matter what's coming your way. It's not about, forcing things, but about learning how to flow.
And I think sometimes, like, finding that flow requires us to slow down, to actually take the time to tune in, listen to what's happening internally, what's happening around us.
Yeah.
And speaking of slowing down, one of the sources that we were looking at made this really interesting point.
Okay.
It said that our true superpower might actually lie in slowing down. What do you think about that?
I think that's such a profound insight,
Yeah.
especially in, our modern world. Everything is so fast-paced. You're constantly bombarded with, like, information demands, places to be, things to do.
Right. We're so used to, like, equating speed with productivity.
Exactly. Exactly. But what if, like, true power, true effectiveness actually came from stillness?
It's like taking that pause
Yes.
before you react in a certain situation, or taking that extra breath before you make a decision.
Exactly. It's about, like, cultivating that space between, like, stimulus and response, right?
Right.
Where you can actually access your deepest wisdom and make choices that are really aligned with, like, your highest good.
Right.
And that's a practice, that's a superpower, I think, that we can all benefit from.
So it's almost like Tai Chi is teaching us to move through life with more intention,
Yes.
with more awareness, more grace.
Beautifully said. And I think, the most beautiful part of all of this is that this ancient art form really does have this power to transform not just, like, our physical health, but also our mental, emotional, even spiritual well-being, right?
Absolutely. So for our listeners who are feeling inspired, they want to go out, they want to explore the world of Tai Chi, where would you recommend that they start?
That's a great question. I think a great first step is to actually just look for Tai Chi classes in your local area.
Okay.
A lot of times, community centers, gyms, even senior centers will offer classes, and they have them for all different levels. So, whether you're a beginner or you've been practicing for a while, you can usually find something.
And don't be afraid to, like, shop around,
Yeah.
try different styles, different teachers until you find one that feels like the right fit.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think, just as a reminder, this deep dive was just a glimpse
Right.
into this really vast world. There's so much more out there to discover and experience and really to embody.
It's a journey, not a race. And who knows, you might find that moving slowly is actually the fastest way to get to where you want to be.